So, very good and good evening. Let's keep it a little more tight today because this is the last part of what we did yesterday. Okay, so just for our recap, what I will do is I'm going to run this through.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the thing now? You guys have to talk to me because when I go full screen
Yes, sir.
mode,
It's with
full screen mode most of the time, I will not be
yeah.
able to see what is happening there.
I know it's visible right now.
Okay.
Even earlier when you presented.
Yeah, this is the problem when I go to this full screen. It'll
Yeah.
go to infinite screen.
During tablets. Yeah.
Now you see the screen.
This is fine.
This is fine, right? All right, good.
Yeah.
So we started off with the study techniques yesterday. Just to understand that these are tools for us to work with it. Okay. So a study technique need not always mean that everything that you're going to learn is going to work for you. It's also important to understand that it's a tool, and depending on the situation, depending on the subject, we have to customize a little and work with that. Okay. So the first part of the study technique, what we looked at was understanding what is it that we want to study, and also looking at what's the quantum, the quantity of content that we need to digest in that time. Okay, and what are the topics and subtopics, what diagrams are there in that particular thing. So this is more like taking 5 minutes to prepare yourself for the reading process, right? So, and then this ends with looking at what are the Q&As that will be there and what people will ask us at the end of the chapter. Then you look at, ask yourself very fundamental question: what is it that I already know about this particular topic? Then what do I need to know before I get started with this? And at the end of this, what is it that I will know, right? So those are some of the mental exercises that you need to do before you get started with study. Okay, then comes the actual act of reading, where you have to read. One of the habits of good reading will always be to keep a sheet of paper with you and a pen, so that you can make certain notes of what you've understood or what you did not understand when you read that, what are your challenges, right? So that's something that we need to look at. One second. Did anybody log in? No. Okay. So what we were also looking at is right to how to read at your own speed, what is the content you need to do, how you need to make notes. All of that is something that is going to be studied. Okay. So here we looked at the next part, which is once you have finished reading, how do you summarize it using a phrase or a word or a sentence that will help you remember the entire paragraph that you're learning. Okay, so this is the art of actually making notes. It's not about writing down everything that the teacher is saying. It is important, not that writing down things are not important. It is important to write down what is happening in the class, but it is also important to write down what did you understand from there. Okay, because what you have understood is the summary, it's the crux of all that you have actually sat through. Even when you are studying, this is very important. After you have read a particular paragraph, it's important to summarize that paragraph either in a phrase or a word. So what we are trying to do is, there is a whole page of 300, 400 or 500 words, and then we are reading all of that and we are understanding it, and then we are trying to summarize it in, let's say, 5 to 6 words. Okay, or sometimes if we are pretty good at articulating what we have learned, then in one word we are able to summarize, okay, this is what it means. Okay, that is what you call the key word. It's called the key word because it unlocks the entire meaning of all the paragraphs that you have studied. All right. So after we have done the keyword, the next thing was to find connectivity, where you take a break of 5 minutes. Once you've finished your studies, you have the list of the keywords and paragraphs. Come back and relook at, okay, what's the keyword one and what's the paragraph this keyword connects to? What do I revise? Now in one sheet, everything is there, and then you go and paste it up on your wall. Every time you wake up, you just look at the keyword and the paragraph, so you'll be able to recall it. And also try to see how each of the keywords are connected to one another. Okay. Now this was the last session's major work. Now what we are going to do, okay, is go one step further. Okay, I have done the connectivity, and now I want to summarize whatever I have learned in a way that, I see the flow of ideas, I see the flow of content, and I also see how the distribution of ideas and contents are there, which will help me prepare well for my exams. Okay, that is what is called the mind map. All right. In a mind map, there are certain key features. One is there is a central theme or an idea, and then the keywords, right? The keywords that are around the central idea, the theme, and how the keywords are connected. And sometimes it can also be an image. If you're a visual person, you're going to use the images there. And then you also see how the idea is progressing in the chapter. This is what mind map will help you summarize and work with. So today we are going to jump into this. So yesterday, the work that I had asked you to do, okay, was basically to take a chapter and a new chapter, and then you have to go deeper and understand how that chapter, paragraph by paragraph, you were able to read, understand, and summarize. That means if you have done that exercise, you will also realize what are the challenges that comes when you are actually sitting and studying. Okay, it will also drive you towards being more attentive while reading the paragraph. Right, you have to pay attention to the paragraph, because now you're looking at, okay, what did I understand from this? How do I summarize it? Okay, so you're also being alert to it. And suppose you are not able to get that keyword, you're going to reread it again, because you want to figure out, okay, which keyword should I pick? Generally, what students do is they take the title of the paragraph itself, like there is introduction. They simply read it and say, okay, it's an introduction. That's not the right way to do, because every chapter has that introduction. And if introduction is your keyword, then you have many things to remember under introduction. So though it's called introduction, in the introduction, there are certain ideas that they are presenting to you. That idea is what you have to pick from your own understanding and say, okay, this paragraph has helped me understand this. So the introduction helped me understand this. That's your keyword. Okay, then the flow. If there are important equations and others, how to write, that's the whole idea of today's session. Okay, that's the idea of how mind mapping is going to help you summarize what you have studied. So after you've done all the keywords, you distribute the keywords around the central theme. Okay, now what is it that I'm talking about? I'm talking about rules of mind mapping. Okay, so let's look at what's the rule that we follow when it comes to mind map. All right, so I'm going to go to this. Very good. Can you see the slide there? So when you're trying to draw the mind map, there are multiple things that you start with. If you're a person who is usually distracted with colors and the others, then it's advised not to use many colors when it comes to mind mapping. But if you're a visual learner, that means you like different colors, association of colors with ideas, then it's always good to choose different colors when you're drawing your mind map. Okay, so there is a central theme. How do you draw the mind map? So first you understand what are the principles of mind mapping. Principles of mind mapping, one is that it has to reflect what your brain is thinking, how you have understood something, what is your nature. right? Any topic that you're going to study or you have studied already, because mind mapping is usually done at the end of the chapter. Okay, I have finished reading the chapter, I have done my keywords, I have got a fair understanding of what this concept is all about. Now I want to organize my thinking. Okay, why this mind mapping became such a powerful tool is when they started doing research on the psychology of learning, psychology of understanding, how do we understand things, how do we relate, there was a lot of things that was not very clear to the community, the scientific community, because sometimes a very peculiar smell reminds you of a song, okay, or somebody's face resembles someone else's face. They may not be related to each other, but you look at someone and then you think of somebody else. A small line from a movie helps you understand and kind of recall the entire movie. Or when you're walking on the street, you see some building, suddenly you think of something that's happening back home or something that you did probably 10 years ago. Okay, this is the input that the brain is actually trying to work with, because the brain is mapping each of these stimuli to something from your past or your present that is going to be there. Sometimes we also call this as the deja vu. Deja vu is you feel like, oh, I have already done this. Okay, many a time what happens is you're sitting and studying, suddenly you feel like, hey, it looks like I have already been in this situation, I have done this in my dream, or probably somewhere previously I have done that. This is because of how the brain is networking itself to various experiences that you're going through. Okay, so this is something mind map uses very effectively. It takes a central theme and then connects it to every other idea that is associated with the mind map. Okay, now what I want you to do, because some of you have already done that exercise of getting the chapter and then reading the thing and the keywords, can you take those keywords and see if you can organize the keywords around the central theme of that particular topic? Okay, take that chapter that you've done, the chapter should be your central theme. At the center, write the name of the chapter, and then around that you just write down all the keywords. Okay, so what I mean is basically this. Right, so you have studied a topic in that particular thing, and then there are many subtopics and then paragraph. You, instead of subtopics, you can look at it as paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and each of these paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4 has a keyword that you are associating it with. So if you can write down the keywords from your yesterday's experiment or yesterday's assignment, okay, then we can move from there to the next topic.
So I wasn't able to do the complete chapter. I was only able to get to like 5 to 7 pages.
That is okay. Let's do it with whatever you have been able to do. Even if I told you, even if you have done 6 paragraphs, right, and you have some 5 or 6 keywords on it, just write down the theme and then the keywords around it.
Sure.
Okay. Hi Srinidhi.
Hi sir, sorry for joining late. My laptop was acting up.
Yeah, that's the Murphy's Law. Okay. Whenever you want certain things to work, it actually does work.
Exactly.
Yeah. I used to have that during my electronics practicals exam, because every time you are doing all the things right, but on the day of the examination, your diode doesn't work, or your transistor doesn't work, or your CR, your oscilloscope is not working, and everything else is set, and you're waiting that okay, what went wrong, and the teacher is coming and checking everything. Everything is fine, but it's not giving you the output. Yeah. And imagine it happens on the day of the examination. It must be like real crazy stress. True. Yeah. So what topic were you able to do yesterday?
Sir, actually, I was not able to complete anything because I had some schoolwork to complete and I came back late.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do it right now if you want, or
Sure, sure. You did Ikigai, right? You read Ikigai. Can you take one of the chapters that you've done in Ikigai and then do the keywords that you do it for Ikigai itself? What are the keywords that comes out of Ikigai? Whatever you've read till now, maybe 70% of it or 60% of the book. Okay.
okay.
So
So
what
I
are those? What are those themes and ideas about what does Ikigai actually mean to you as of now in terms of few keywords?
okay, sir. Yeah, I'll do it.
Do that now. So you the subject at the subject place you say ikigai and then you write down all the keywords that comes to your mind which reminds you of that process of what ikigai is all about, right? So it is about why you do things and how it is and why you are here, all those ideas that are coming up, because that's also going to tell you how each chapter can be revised. This is something in a very informal way Swami Vivekananda used to do that, not like a mind map or anything, but he had this knack of reading a chapter so fast that he could summarize the gist of the chapter quickly. And you ask him anything in the book, he was able to recall and say what it actually means.
So here in my Ikigai book, you want me to summarize the entire chapter into some keywords.
Yes. Whatever chapter you are right now studying, or maybe you studied previously, just summarize them into, let's say, 5 words that can explain what that chapter is all about. Basic ideas that the chapter is talking about.
Okay.
Go ahead. Take a couple of minutes and then do it. So Daksh, you can also do something very similar. You just focus on what did you do in the classroom today, and what are the things your teacher has spoken about. What are the words that you remember from that class? That can also be an experiment to work with the keywords from the classroom, and it's a real time situation for all of you.
Yes, sir, I'm done.
Okay, what was the topic?
Heredity.
Heredity. And what are the keywords that you have captured?
Until now, mainly keywords isn't there were headings, right? So out of the headings, I found a few keywords and I wrote like key points, like one phrase for each heading.
Sure, sure. Read it out. Read the phrase. Let's see what's the summary.
So the first thing was heredity, which was passing down of characteristics,
Right.
and then variations, differences of features. Gregor Mendel, founder of genetics, Mendel's law. First one is every character is controlled by factors, and the second one talks about the dominant factor.
Very good. So it's also about dominant and recessive, right? So we can also use very simple phrases like DR. DR also stands for doctor. DR can stand for dominant and recessive,
Yeah.
right? So the moment you look at those letters, it should connect you back to what is the theme that they're talking about in that paragraph, right?
Yes.
And also remember, this is the beginning of the entire branch of biotechnology.
Yeah.
Okay, because it starts with genetics, understanding the genes,
Yeah.
and eventually this will lead to how the modification of the gene, the manipulation of the gene, right? Understanding the Human Genome Project. There is a huge thing called as a Human Genome Project. Okay,
Yeah.
so they are trying to sit and understand what each of those gene actually represents as a character. Why is it that 90% of my genome is basically called a junk DNA, right? That 90% of my DNA is actually, we have no idea what those characteristics are. We only know that there is 10% which we have elaborated the human genome, and we are different from apes only in that 1%, last 1% of the gene. Yeah. So if you remember, I have not read this for the last 20 years now,
Yeah.
right? But it's part of how my mind remembers the topics when it's connected. And every time I'm having a conversation with a student or an educator, right, or somebody who's an expert in the field, this is my background knowledge. I always go from that background knowledge to understand what's the biochemistry of this, what is this. And all of this I've studied during my college days, not even during my school days, because our school textbooks did not have gene as a concept at all.
Yeah.
Most of genes we were exposed to only when we were in our undergrad. Okay, but you guys are exposed now to multiple of these ideas,
Yeah.
biotechnology, all that is coming up. Yes. Good. So Srinidhi, you have your things ready?
Not yet, sir. I'm still thinking of my keywords here.
Sure, sure. Take your time. Take your time. And remember what I told you about study techniques. It's always to do at your pace only. Okay, and you also need to be more realistic about the pace. You cannot take it like, Raghavan has said that it's at my pace, I'm going to take 100 years to finish this. That's not the thing that I'm talking about. When I say your pace, that means it's the pace at which you're comfortable to read, receive, register, and recall. Right? That's the speed at which you can do. So Daksh, how about you?
Not yet.
Sure. And since you're all students of science, I have actually taken the liberty to summarize all of these ideas for science and tell you how to actually look at science. Okay, so that you will get an idea how powerful this tool of mind mapping is. Okay, it helps you summarize the concepts. If you actually look at this map that you're seeing here, when you take the topic and the subtopics around it and then the keywords, it will tell you that the subtopics, whatever they're talking about, that's basically your 4-mark questions. Most of the 4-mark questions will be addressing those subtopics. And your 2-mark questions will talk about the ideas that are there. And the 1-mark questions are those keywords that you actually come up with. It's that fundamental fact-based questions, right? So if you look at the map from the right side in, outside to in, the ones that you write on the outside periphery, right, that is basically your all 1-markers. And the closer you go, that means the number of marks keeps increasing as you go closer, because more details is required to explain the core idea. The ones on the outermost arms that are there, they are all one markers. So 1-mark questions and 2-mark questions and 4-mark questions. That's typically how the mind mapping works. And it also depends a lot in terms of how much you are going to spend time and how many mind maps you're going to do for the same topic. Okay, eventually, after let's say you've done some 15-20 of these mind maps, you will gain certain control over, now how do I want to use the mind map. Okay, so let's say each of the topics, some 10-15 or even 20 mind maps you're doing, so you have 20 chapters, so roughly around 500 mind maps within the span of 1 year, and you will definitely be at a position where you can understand, okay, how do I work with that mind map. Yesterday I showed you my wall element that I have, right, where I have written down what are the things I want to do in different aspects. That's a different way of representing a mind map. Okay, and at one point in time when I was in school, I always used to write my mind maps on the wall, right, and once in a year you do a whitewash, so that way it is good. Yes, Srinidhi, go ahead.
Okay, yes, sir. So, as yesterday I picked up my topic as my book Ikigai. Here we have some keywords where I've noted down core words which are and related topics, and then at the end we have the specific keywords.
Very good.
So, I'll start off with the core keywords. Here, Ikigai is the first main core concept, which is basically it means your hobby. For example, I have a hobby of continuously writing with a specific type of flow, and I've been practicing it for the past couple of months. That
Very
turns
good.
into my ikigai, and that purpose is that our second core concept here is purpose.
Right.
It basically states that what my purpose of life could be, like what I can do with my life.
Correct.
And the third concept, we have meaning. So there has to be a meaning to something, right? Example, if I take a keyword, that there's a meaning to something. So like meaning as in, what can I say here?
Even purpose could mean something to you, right? If that purpose, if that action doesn't mean something to you, why would you do it?
Exactly.
So good.
And our fourth concept is happiness. So all of us might do something which will only bring happiness to us. So like
True.
maybe we study for ourselves so that we can score better grades and we be happy.
Right.
So it's not like I'm scoring for my parents or maybe the teachers who hate me. It's for myself.
Why do you think teachers hate you?
It's what they always come screaming in the classes. Is what this class is a fish market. This that and all. So it's not about
It's not about hate.
for them.
It's not about hate. It's also important to choose the right vocabulary. Okay. Sometimes the reason why teachers do what they do is because of their helplessness. Right? They want to help you, but they have a understanding that I know it all, but I am still not able to get through to the child. Okay. The day the teacher understands that I have a lot to learn about my student, that's the meaning. And the purpose of a teacher's life is to actually understand that I have not understood many things. And the journey is to keep understanding one step at a time, one step at a time. Okay. So when they understand that, that is why some of the teachers who are your very, very friendly teachers and you like them a lot, is because they actually understand what you're going through and they are always taking a step back and not pushing you to achieve their goals. Okay, so good. And the ones who are not doing it, they're not bad teachers, they're not bad people. They're basically finding that purpose. Okay, and because your generation is also a little bit about that fast pace, like you want everything like that, then it's not shortcuts. I'm not sure, because you were also very clear yesterday that you said, it's always good to take the actual path, the time it takes to go and achieve, rather than cutting short that and jumping the gun. It's not like cutting the line and going getting a ticket, because end of the day you have to sit and watch the movie, right? This is something I always tell when I go to the airport, right? People are all rushing, I'm like, you have a ticket, there is a seat number, what are you hurried about? And the flight doesn't take off till you get in, right? And somewhere there is that urge that I have to be first in the plane. For what? Even if you're first in the plane, you go and sit there, you have to sit after I come and sit, only the flight is going to take off. So, and some people is like, I want to sit in the front seat. Why? The car is going to go together. All the wheels will go together. The front seat doesn't reach first. We're all reaching together. But
It's not like the front seat takes up like a jet first, and like a parachute goes here and there. The driver has to drive, then we move ahead.
Exactly. But it's this is what is the meaning. In Ikigai, when they say meaning, this is what it is. To understand correctly. Okay, what does it take? What am I doing? Okay, am I working with my common sense, or am I just going with the crowd? Am I just doing because at that moment I feel like, oh, I have to do this? Right? So, good one.
Yes, sir.
Nice summary. Daksh, what are your words?
Sir, here's how much I did that. I actually did one part of heredity, which was like about gender determination, and then so basically I wrote the subject is heredity, and then I took like two subtopics, which is one was gender determination, and the other was acquired or inherited traits.
Very good.
And then under gender discrimination, I noted what it was, which is like the process by which the sex of a baby is determined. And then
Mhm.
after that, I wrote another keyword, which is chromosomes.
Correct.
And then I gave the combinations of chromosomes for male child and a female child. So I just written X, Y it gives a male child, and X gives a female child as
Correct.
points.
Right. So,
And the second topic I wrote is acquired and inherited hate is something in which something which is developed in response to like your surroundings. And then I wrote another point under that, which says that it cannot be passed on to the future generations. And then I have listed like one example of that, like the tail of a lizard, which is something it gets, which turquoise, so it doesn't die if you cut the tail. I've only done that much as of now.
Good, good. So during this process also there is this previous session when we did about the learning. What are the things that are learning? So how much of attention is required to do this? How alert are you when you are doing this, and how you are repeating in your mind? And what are the mistakes that you feel once you do the mind map? You will look at it and you will feel that, oh, maybe this will go there, that will come here, those changes that are all happening, all of that will happen. What I'm inviting you to do is, don't be scared of making those mistakes. Okay? Through these mistakes is when we actually go towards the actual process of mind mapping. Many a time we will make mistakes in connecting the ideas, many a times we will make mistakes in connecting the topics. But once you have understood that, okay, this was a mistake, I'm doing it differently, next time you're not going to make that mistake. One. Second, with a new topic, new mind map, you will pay attention to that, like, okay, last time I had made this mistake, so now let me pay attention and focus here so that I don't make those mistakes. But something new happens, some new mistake happens, but there is a scope to learn. Mistake is a scope to learn. It's not the end of anything. Okay? Unless that mistake is very, very dire, like, it's kind of life-threatening mistakes, which generally doesn't happen when you're studying. Okay? Those kind of mistakes will happen if you're on a trekking or you're hiking or you're doing an adventure sport. You need to be extremely careful about a lot of things. But when you're sitting and reading in the house, rarely such dire mistakes will happen. Whatever mistakes you're going to do with your keywords, don't worry about them. Right? You can always take an eraser, rub it, or put a line, draw the next one. Now what I'm going to do with you is, I'm going to take you to the crux of what mind mapping is all about. Okay? So this is the next slide that I have done, keeping in mind the topics of science. Okay? How do I look at science as a whole, as a scientist? How do I look at science? And this is how it's going to help you prepare when you're reading a science textbook. Okay? It's not just about the content. It's not about all the things that is written in the book. It is why those topics are written in that book. Right? The purpose of that chapter. What's the purpose of the chapter? The purpose of the chapter in science is to show to you what is this phenomena that we are actually talking about. Right? Any science, for example, both of you did heredity and then there is Ikigai. All of this is something to do with your life. Ikigai is a process or a phenomena where you discover your purpose of life. Right? That's the phenomena. And in science, in heredity, the phenomena of heredity is how a genetic information, how an information about a species, plant or animal, right, is passed on from one generation to another. So the phenomena there that you will be looking at is actually how something is getting passed from one to another. If you are looking at Newton's law, the phenomena that we are talking about is motion, how objects move, how do you study motion. If you are looking at nuclear physics, you are looking at the phenomena of how the nucleus is holding itself in spite of having so much of positive charges together. There must be enormous amount of kind of repulsion that is between them, and yet the nucleus is stable. And lot of every topic that you take actually in science or anything around nature has to do with the phenomena. There is something that's happening that you're actually observing. That's the whole idea of life. What's the next step? After I have observed something, I am really curious, I am excited about it, then I am also a little more cranky to say, can I actually replicate this in the laboratory? Right? I see the comet, I see a comet going from one place to another. Telescope wise, I've discovered it. I am really super excited. Now I'm also thinking, can I create a model of the comet here on the Earth? What are the things I need? So I'm going to study the comet, I'm going to understand the comet and see if I can replicate that here on the Earth. That's the purpose of experimenting. Right? I'm going to give you examples from what you have spoken about, right? In Ikigai, what is the experiment? The experiment is your habit. What are the things you need to work with? What are the things you need to change? How are you going to understand the meaning? That's the experiment. You're going to try a lot of things. And many a time, whatever you try, you may not succeed. The same way with all experiments that we have done in the nature. We take a nature's idea, we replicate it. We see the rainbow, we take a prism, we take a glass, we take some water in a bottle, take a spherical water, bottle and then pass light through it and see if I get a rainbow. That is how we as human beings are experimenting with nature. And once we are experimenting, there is something that you understand. Right? When you are working with the purpose, you understand the meaning. Once you understand the meaning, now you start looking at, is this understanding a universal understanding or is it very, very specific to me? If it's a universal understanding, it's called the laws of nature. It's a law of nature. Evolution is a law of nature. It's a process. Heredity is a part of this whole evolution that is happening, where some information is getting passed from one to another. During the passage of an information, there can be a mutation, and the mutation can lead to a new species or a new character in the old species. Right? So that means I am discovering Gregor Mendel's laws of nature, which is law of genetics. We may say law of genetics, but basically what am I looking at? I am looking at the law that the nature is using to propagate one generation to another. So anything that we are learning in nature falls under these three categories: phenomena, experimentation, and laws of nature. Laws of nature is a summary of our understanding. I first see something, I repeat it, I do it again in the laboratory. In this process, I understand how nature is working. Now, it doesn't stop there. Why it doesn't stop there? It doesn't stop there because as a scientist, I also have to share my learning to the world. How do I share my learning to the world? I share the learning to the world through a mathematical equation. I write a formula. I write an equation, or I write down a relation between what I see to what is there in the world and why it is the way it is, because that way I am communicating exactly what I have understood to the world and not some mumbo jumbo. That is why that word relation is important. Relation between quantities. There is an input, there is an output, there is a process between that. There is a reaction, which is product, reactants and product. So combine how the reactant goes to product in terms of chemistry. That's a relation I'm talking about. Or in genetics, the relationship that we are talking about is how a specific character can be dominant or recessive. In what conditions is it going to be dominant and recessive? Then I'm going to draw the truth table. I'm saying X of the father, X of the mother, Y of the father, X of the mother. The combination will give me a boy or a girl in that particular statistical way. So what is the probability that a child can be a boy or a girl? Right? And then I come up with the answer that it's 50-50 chances that every time a parent is going to deliver a child or a parent is having a child, the possibility is, that's for one child. Now imagine there is a family of 8 people. Sometimes you see that there are all 8 girls, all 8 boys, all 4 boys and 4 girls, 2 boys and 4 girls, something like that. All these combinations, they are coming up because it is statistical. Right? And that can be studied using the relationship. So in summary, a scientist finds those relationships from the laws and talks to all other people around him. He's going to explain. That's what Newton did. When Newton came up with the laws of motion, we call it Newton's laws. But what did he actually discover? He discovered the nature's laws of motion. And he gave those three equations. F is equal to ma as one of the things, and acceleration is velocity by time, and velocity is distance by time. All these kind of ideas are part of the relationship which anybody can use. And it is true, no matter who believes in it or not. That is what a relationship is all about. And then they also discovered that the universe is expanding, the solar system is evolving, the sun is going to die someday. How do they explain this to people? They are going to give equations and say, you put this equation, you will find out exactly how many years the sun is going to die. And maybe a few errors here and there, but they are definitely true about that. That is the power of relations. But in science, it doesn't stop there. A scientist may stop at the relationship. Science doesn't stop at relationship. Science evolves next to engineering. What is engineering? Engineering is to build something out of the scientific knowledge. That's called the application. Anything that we learn, we are going to apply. I know if I take two stones and rub, I can generate fire. What do I do with that knowledge? I am going to generate fire and I am going to keep myself warm. And then there are other people who don't understand the basics idea of why the fire is dangerous to work with, but they say that, oh, I can kill my enemy with that. Now that's a different thinking. The knowledge, the science that is giving you the peace, the science doesn't give you peace, science gives you information and truth. It tells you that yes, you can take two stones, get that friction, there is a spark coming out, you can use that spark in terms of a fire triangle, the fire is generated, put a fuel and oxygen, it will generate a lot of fire. What you do with that is part of the application. That has nothing to do with the scientist or the science. It's to do with people who are using it. That is why it is very important to be very responsible with science. I can understand genetics, but then I will go ahead trying, how do I mix lion and tiger? How do I mix a dinosaur and a lizard? How do I mix this and that and work with it? Those are all experiments that I do. I do it because I am curious about the knowledge. But what comes out of it may not be helping mankind. Right? A few years ago, they came up with this idea of social media. Right? There was this thing called Orkut. Before you guys were even born, there was a thing called Orkut, which later on developed to become Facebook. Okay? Orkut was created by a gentleman to actually track his lost wife. They were on a vacation. He lost her somewhere in the journey. They both were separated. So he came back. He started an online platform to, talk to the world and say, see, this is my wife. If you have found her, can you, kind of give her update and give me an update of where you have seen this person and others. So a lot of image, video interface, all of that was created for an online platform, which was called Orkut. People actually started using it, becoming friends on it and talking and all those things. Later on, the same idea was taken by Zuckerberg and he made it Facebook. Right? Today, Facebook is called Meta, because they've integrated all social platforms for people to interact. But you also know what are the drawbacks of social media. It was created with the intention that people come together, but what we did not understand is how to stay together. Somebody posts something, then someone is thrashing them out, somebody is bad-mouthing them, anonymously writing comments about it without being mindful of what that word is going to mean to the other person. So what we have seen there is that there are a lot of children who are actually having depression because somebody did not like their post, somebody commented badly about their dress, or someone did not, respond back to the comment that they have given. So we are also creating a situation where there is this mental disturbance that is coming up. Now that's not the mistake of the technology. Technology is there. That's part of the application that's coming in. It's how you use that application that's going to make you better. Right? Now I gave you an entire class on science that people would have taken 10 years to tell you. That's the power of mind map. Right? It uses the keywords. It tells you what those keywords are and what they mean, and each of the keyword can be explained and expanded to give you better understanding of the topic. And if you can organize your thoughts using a mind map, then it's easy to access them when you need it for the exam. That means it's a very powerful memory tool also. When something is asked and you want to quickly grab and write about it, then there is a way in which you can actually remember and write. Okay? So this is basically the power of mind mapping, where I have used it for science to summarize and tell you what it is. And just to summarize our entire class, this is what we actually have done so far. And now you see one more trick that I have used here. I have not used all the names. I have converted each of the word by taking the first letter of each of the word into an acronym. Acronym is a very powerful memory technique. You can actually convert any of your learnings into acronyms and remember them. For example, the 7 colors of the rainbow, people taught you as Vibgyor. Right? Vibgyor was done because it's an acronym for violet, indigo, blue, green, all of that. Same way for the planets that you had to remember, 9 planets when we were there, 8 when you are there, right? How to remember that? So there was a poem or there was a phrase that they used, my very educated mother just showed us 9 planets. And how to take the first letters of each and then figure out that there's Mercury, Venus, Mars. The same way you can do it for your chemistry classes, your biology classes. Everything can be converted to an acronym to remember, and the acronym will also expand as a mind map. And each one of these topics will extend itself into subtopics and basic facts about those subtopics. Now, this is something that I want you to experiment with for at least a week's time, which is how to convert all that you're studying into a single page of mind maps, where it uses keywords and key phrases so that everything is understood neatly. I'm going to share this presentation with you. Go through this presentation again and take a new topic and work with it again with the same process of SQRKCM and see if you can summarize the chapter using a mind map. Okay, because the moment you're able to do a mind map, trust me, you have done enough networks of this memory in your brain to remember the chapter in a way it has to be remembered for your exam. Okay, but the key word there is you have to practice. A few mistakes will happen, that's okay, but then let's practice them neatly so that they add all that value to your understanding of the topic. Okay, so Aditi, I was just winding up the session telling that you need to now take a topic and follow this SQRKCM technique, do the mind map and share that mind map with me, so that if there are anything that I need to correct or I need to guide you on, I can actually guide you on in the group, and then you can improve your mind mapping technique.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so I'm closing the session here. Any questions that you have, please share.
Nothing said yet. I have understood almost each concept.
Very good.
Maybe as soon as I get the PPT in the group, I just brush up my topics as usual.
Sure, that will be good. Daksh, how about you?
Once I've understood everything, yeah, the session has gone amazing.
Good. So there are multiple things that I also do during the sessions with students. I will keep posting it with your parents. If you guys are interested to learn some of those techniques also, like there is a memory technique that you can work with. Then there is time management techniques that you can work with. Okay. And even in the study techniques, there are different other techniques if you want to work. Okay. But this is basic. You can work with this for now, and you kind of practice this for a while, because unless you practice the technique, you will not know how much of it is helpful, how much of it is not. Okay, so once you figure out that this much it is helping me, then we can look at what additional tools or skill you will need to actually make this learning journey, more happier and more effective for yourself. Okay, so Aditi, anything from you?
Sir.
Okay, yeah. Srinidhi, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, is by chance do you take any coding or programming classes?
I know people who can do that. I personally don't do coding classes.
Okay, sir, yeah.
Okay, because too many people who are coding, I always feel when too many people do it, I shouldn't be doing it. Okay, I would prefer helping you understand why coding is needed, like Ikigai for coding, and then go with it. Yeah, that'll be great. Good. Daksh?
No questions, sir, but yeah, the session was very
All right, good. So let's wrap it up here. It's a 2-day session anyway, which way it's going to be quite a thing to work with. So most important aspect, I will repeat again, it is you need to practice the techniques. with certain real examples, then only you know how much you've mastered it. And once you've mastered it, then some of the steps you can cut it down. That's the shortcut. Okay, you can start from there and go to the final stage quickly, like what I've done with the previous slide. Okay, so I'll share all of this with you. All the best, and hope to see you all in the other sessions that I will plan and come up with you for the next week. Okay, till then, take care. Bye bye.
Sure, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.